Yeah. So you're Adam. How do you say your last name?
Stjärnljus.
Oh, that's not what I
It's
expected.
no, it's very hard to pronounce.
Hmm.
So, but whatever is fine. But Stjärnljus
Okay.
is the Swedish pronunciation. Yeah.
Yeah, we had I think he was a Swedish creative director when I worked at a advertising agency, and his
Yeah.
last name was spelled Courage, like Kerj, but it was always Adam Carey. And I was like, I don't.
Yeah.
But in my head, I'd
Yeah.
say Courage because I just read it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of like uh, consonants after each other that makes a lot of strange
Yeah.
combination of sounds.
So you're the creative director and the co-founder of Wishfully.
Yes, creative director, co-founder, and co-director. I'm directing the game together with my colleague Klaus,
Mhm.
and also the main producer. So I mean, we're a small studio, so you have
Yeah.
to wear some hats.
How big is the studio, or how many people, I guess, total?
So the studio is we're 12 employees
Hmm.
right now, and during the project we've been kind of going up and down a little bit. So we've been around like 18 people working on the game,
Okay.
basically, for most of the time. Yeah, and then we've had like an external sound design studio that's been amazing. It's Italian based, and then of course our wonderful composer Takeshi Furukawa as
Yeah.
well.
And the music is
Uh,
beautiful too.
Thank you.
Hmm. And you guys started in 2018, the team, but were you working on Planet of Lana since then, or was it like an idea, but you were also helping other studios out with stuff,
No,
or
so I
no?
mean the whole thing was born in 2017 actually. When so I started working on the game by myself,
Hmm.
like in evenings and weekends on my spare time, and I drew like this concept art, this key art that we still use, and I had this core idea of it, and then people liked the idea, and I had like a broad creative network since I've been working with animation in the animation industry. So I've been working as an illustrator and animator, and doing a lot of like commercials and TV intros and that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And then more and more people kind of came onto the project, and we started the studio in 2018. And yeah, I mean, most of us have never worked in the games industry before. Our programmers have, but they came in later in the project.
Hmm.
So it's been a long journey
Yeah.
to get where we're at now, but it was kind of one of those moments where we just kind of jumped out into the unknown, and I'm very happy we did. But if I would have known how hard it is to make games, I don't know if I would have done it. But no, sometimes it's good to not
Hmm.
be too smart, not think about everything.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it's our only game
Hmm.
that we've made, and no other projects on the side. Like this has been our main focus. But the first 3 years, then we had to work. Okay, we had to work on other things, but not in the studio. But
Hmm.
because we didn't have any financing for the game, first 3 years, pitching the game for publishers.
Hmm.
So we really had this really long like pre-production period, you could say, where we did like our vertical slice, this proof of concept demo, and where we also got the chance to fail a lot and just figure out like how do you make a game, how do you make
Yeah.
good puzzles, how do we make this world interesting, and everything from the like visual style to the gameplay to animation systems. I mean, there's so much things to figure out. So it was kind of good also that we actually didn't get signed too quickly,
Hmm.
because I think the game became much better for us to have this massive amount of time to kind of iterate and learn before we finally got funding from Fundable Games, which is our wonderful publisher.
Hmm.
Um, and we've been funded since, and also by Xbox, and we've been funded since autumn of 2020. So it was 3 years of proper production, you could
Okay.
say.
Yeah. And what was the relationship with Thunderful like? Like, were they helping out a lot with maybe behind the scenes or giving you advice, or just let you do your thing and then come in and
Yeah, they've been really, really great. I mean, they've really had a huge amount of trust for us. They really believed in the vision from the start, and we've always felt that they've trusted our creative process and the vision for the game. So they've just been super supportive, and we've gotten a ton of freedom to make the game that we wanted, and been so supportive with everything. Like, helped us with all the marketing and all the amazing opportunities we've had to show the game in different venues, and yeah, they've done a lot like that, so we can focus on game development, which is
yeah.
what we want to do.
Yeah, because there's a few publishers that when I see their name, I'm like, oh, I gotta look into more of this game. And it's like Thunderful, Devolver, and there's a few others of the indie ones. And like
Mm.
they know, I don't know, they know how to pick games because maybe they're not helping as much as I think they are, or they're just doing the marketing and stuff more.
I think for me, a good publisher is, of course, like they have the marketing and like the experience of getting games out there. It's a lot of data-driven stuff as well, and it's tough. You can make the best game, but like getting people to know it exists is equally hard. And that's their expertise, and yeah, and I think like a great relationship when you can trust each other, and you can feel that you can have the creative freedom, and that yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's what they've done. So we've been very happy with them.
Yeah. Well, with Planet of Lana, I think it was since the first trailer in the, it was like an Xbox showcase a few years ago, I think was the first time I saw it. It was like I don't know, it was just the look of the game, the art and everything. I was like, I need to play this game, but it also reminded me of, I think, Inside and Limbo and those type of games that I loved, that they're like very simple, but I love the story and everything about it. I guess the more I played the game, I noticed how, like, when we get close up, how simple the art is, but it's also so dynamic. And I think that's through the use of like reflections and shadows and a bunch of other stuff, like in the background stuff around the art that makes it look so good.
Yeah, it's the as you say, it's all the parts working together,
Mm-hmm.
and a big part is also like the wind system we have to
Yeah.
bring life to it all. Because if we wouldn't have any wind in the game, for example, it would be quite a different feeling, I think. And otherwise, it's quite a complicated mix of different techniques that we use in the
Mm-hmm.
game. And we've been talking a lot. We have a really good relationship with Unity, which is the engine we're using.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think they're a bit disappointed sometimes because we don't use the newest features, because we're kind of going against the engine. Like, it's not like a
Mm-hmm.
3D game where you have like lights and you have ray tracing and you have all these like uh, shaders trying to create like realistic things, but we in the other end, like trying to create this hand painted look,
Mm-hmm.
and like this 2.5D depth. And it took a long time to reach where we are now. In the beginning, the game was much more flat, so it was totally 2D frame by frame drawings
Mm-hmm.
for the animations. But then we felt that it didn't sell the world. It didn't create the immersion that we needed to, that we wanted. That was the vision for the game. So what we ended up with is really this mix of, there's a lot of like, there are dynamic lighting as well in there. Plus there's like hand painted lighting in
Mm-hmm.
on rocks, like in shadows, and then there's a lot of like sprites, hand painted assets, and it's just a mixture of it all that makes kind of the final visual style.
Yeah. When I noticed the other day while I was playing, like the clouds look like a watercolor painting.
Yeah,
Like they look beautiful, and then the water looks so good. It's like very simple but good. I learned, I guess, in some games water can be made to look beautiful with like little, like there was a game preview the other day that it was just a simple probably blue shade, but it had like little lines going through the water that made it look alive. And I was like, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And that's fun also when you're working with like a stylized style
Hmm.
for your game. And there's so many cool games out there with unique styles. So that's fun.
Yeah. And then early on, I guess I thought of it more as like a, as for the music, the look of the game, I was like, oh, it's like a happy game. So the robots probably won't kill me. They'll just capture me. And then one just like zap me, and then it zapped the little companion too. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh no, you got to watch out for these guys.
Yeah, exactly. It's also that contrast that I think is makes our game interesting as well. Like that it looks very pretty and like
Hmm.
it looks like a world you want to explore, but then you have these undertones that's very serious and like this epic story of this young girl being forced out into the wilderness and trying to find her way and then finding this creature. And I mean there are scary parts in the game, but we still, what we aimed for was kind of that tonality very similar to like Spirited Away or these kind of like
Hmm.
Miyazaki
Yeah.
Studio Ghibli movies where it's like they're beautiful and they're like you're getting drawn into this world, but it still has a lot of seriousness to them as
Hmm.
well, and emotional narrative that we wanted to have,
Hmm.
which you figure out as you play, and I think which we've also been able to convey in our trailers also
Yeah.
during marketing.
Hmm. I guess I mentioned games like Inside and Limbo, but those are probably some influences for the type of game. But is there other stuff, maybe games that influence the game another way, or even non like movies or other stuff?
Definitely like Studio Ghibli
Hmm.
films a lot, both for tonality and just how they use colors and stuff was
Yeah.
something that uh, I also looked a lot on. For games, there's just so many games. I love all types of games, I would say, but I mean games that I grew up with, like Another World. I think it was called Out of This World in the States, maybe.
Hmm.
Um, that was like a cinematic side scroller that was so ahead of its time when it came out. I played it on my Amiga 500 when I was like 10 or something like that.
Hmm.
And then I played Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, also
Oh
was
yeah.
a game that I really loved. I mean, it's a lot more humorous than than Planet of
Hmm.
Lana, but it still had that like epic. It was still an epic cinematic side scroller. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of different games that inspired us. And then like when Limbo came out, and that whole indie scene exploded,
Hmm.
that was so fun, and it also opened up the thought of that, okay, this is something that you could actually maybe do like as a single developer or as a small team. And yeah, I really, both Limbo and Inside is a big inspiration definitely for the game
Hmm.
as well.
There's no combat in the game because you're like it's mostly puzzles and stuff, but there's the parts where the puzzle has like a robot around you and you're trying to hide and make it, but it feels almost the same stress level as combat because you're trying to hide and get past this robot, and you memorize his moves or the moves of the robot, but you're like, okay, I have to get here, and then you can't do it. And you keep messing up. But you're still like freaking out. You're like, oh my god, I'm gonna get this girl killed.
Yeah, or the companion, right? And I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah.
to build that tension is also, I mean, the music plays
Yeah, the
such a big,
music gets like stronger at those points too.
yeah, it plays such a big role on like conveying that sense of urgency and fear.
Hmm.
And I think, I mean, you feel also that you're like you want to protect Mui as well, like
Yeah.
and you use both Lana and Mui sometimes as bait,
Hmm.
for luring like robots and creatures. um, yeah, but it was a very conscious decision from the beginning to not have any combat, like that you would kind of be in the shoes of this young girl and having to like, I mean, it's something very interesting about that, just having to try to survive and using
Hmm.
your wit and agility and through collaboration with this weird creature that you meet.
Yeah. And then I guess what's the language they're speaking, or is it a made up language, and how is it created? If it is.
So it's so I directed the game together with co-directed the game together with Claes Eriksson, who's also the script writer, and he has also created this language, and it's a proper language with grammar and rules and everything like that. So he thought it was a blast doing that. He really enjoyed it, and even though it's quite a simple language, but it still has like you can learn how to like everything that's spoken. You can kind of decipher it if you're like nerdy about it. Yeah, but we really, because at the beginning we didn't have it because we wanted to tell the story without words and just through playing. But then as development went on, we realized that, you know, Lana is always communicating with myVGBC, right? And at first we had like whistles, and then like, okay, but it wasn't enough just with whistles. So then we realized that we needed commands, and then we kind of went from there into the full like fantasy language, which even though you don't understand exactly what they're saying, it still adds this layer of storytelling that still works very well in like conveying another layer of emotions that you can understand when they're talking to each other and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, I feel like, you start to learn like which command, like what words mean come here and which ones mean stay. And there was another thing that I heard people talking about the game early on, and they were calling myVGBC. They were like, I think his name's Louis. And people were like guessing his name.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. I've seen people also call myVGBC a total other thing, like they kind of missed that.
Or one of the commands even.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it doesn't matter that much, and it's that kind of game also that some people will play it just for the puzzles, or like, you know, as a mission to just complete it quickly, and others will kind of take in all the details, and we made it deliberately so that it can you can get different amount of things out of it depending on what person you are and how you like to play games.
I think also with the like not understanding the language makes it a bigger reveal one, because I just got to the village where they're taking people away.
Yeah,
because you're just like running, you're like, oh, I'm running, I guess she's running away from robots or something, like something happened and she's running away, you don't really know what's going on. But then when you get there, like, oh, she's running maybe to save her family or her people, or warn them that this thing, maybe it just happened and it hasn't been happening. Like you can make up the story, but it unlocks it in your as you go, because you don't really understand what they're saying.
Exactly. And I think there's this there's something interesting happening there when you're not explaining exactly everything. You have to fill in the gaps yourself, which is interesting.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of use of, I guess, writing on the wall and stuff, or when you get to certain places, you'll see art on the wall that kind of tells more of the story.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very cool.
Yeah, and through the environments also that you get to explore, there's a lot of details and hints into that explains much more of the backstory and lore of the universe that players with more attention to detail can decipher if they want to.
And then through the character animations, like, I feel there's so much movement that even every time I jump to like, I'm like, I'm not gonna make this jump, this gap's too big, and then she like barely grabs it. But every jump feels like, oh my god, I'm not gonna make it. Because of
that's
the animations.
Good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, we several of us in the studio has a background from animation, which I think is really good for this kind of game. And our lead animator Olle Engström is really, really talented and has really put his mark on the game, with like really creating and it's such a hard balance also with responsivity in the controls, but still making her feel alive, and
Yeah.
as a child, and you, yeah, it took us a long time in getting it into what it is now.
Hmm.
To make her feel that she has weight, and not like light as a feather. And yeah, but I'm really happy how it ended up.
Yeah. And there's the thing of when Mui's not on screen and you just see his little cloud of him running, and but it also it's cool because it shows like what level he's at, because you're like, oh, he's on this part now, he's here. Like if he's too far away, you know
Yeah,
exactly where he is. But that's very cool.
yeah, we didn't have that for quite a long time,
Hmm.
but we realized that that was a very nice thing to have, for you to. I mean, it was. We didn't have any like good games for reference that we could find, at least, that had like a similar mechanic of a companion that was like could be off screen or like in a side scroller like this. So there was a lot of things that we had to uh, iterate a lot on to kind of find a good
Hmm.
solution for.
Oh, and then I guess since I don't like I have a PlayStation and Switch, and then my PC is pretty old, but I don't have an Xbox. So whenever I see these type of games coming to Xbox and PC, I'm like, oh man, I wish it would come to Switch. But um I'm like almost done with this game, which says a lot because I barely get to play on my PC. So I've been trying to like wake up early or get there early and do it before work to finish it, just because I love it so much. But there's only like a handful of games lately that I finished on PC because I just don't have the time to play. So I feel like it says a lot about how much I adore this game.
Oh, that's awesome. That's I'm
Hmm.
very happy to hear that.
Yeah, because I think the last game I finished was like Ori and the Blind
Yeah.
Forest, and then the second one came to Switch. So I was like, good, I can do that there.
Mm.
Ima muy. Hola.
When it comes to puzzle design, there has to be like the balance of not making it too hard that people walk away, but not making it too easy that people are like bored with it. But I feel like you guys do a really good job with that. And then,
Thank you.
mhm.
I mean, that's been a huge challenge, and it's kind of interesting because our technical anime, or Don Faxe, in the team, he started as a technical animator on the project,
Mhm.
and then like halfway through the project we realized that he started working on some puzzles, and we just realized that had the perfect brain for it, so he became the lead puzzle designer, and that was really when it kind of took off, like the quality of the puzzles. And it's so hard, as you say, finding that balance, because we deliberately wanted to make it a little bit more approachable than Inside,
Mhm.
uh, uh, but still, like, because if you make it too simple, it's just not fun, just finding that balance of approachability but still interesting, and that you can feel smart. But we really wanted like a good pacing in the game with a lot of fun factor and like variety, new mechanics, both like with story, having like new beats of like story, or a new biome that you get to, or a new like area to explore, or
Mhm.
new game mechanics. So we really wanted like a good flow throughout the game. And yeah, and that's something I'm very proud of, and that we worked really hard to achieve.
Yeah. And so far, there was one puzzle that had me, I had to bring out like on my notebook, I had to write out the puzzle because it was off the screen and then coming back to it. But I feel I love when games make like I think there was an Uncharted that had puzzles with like symbols, and I had a little notebook that I'd like write them down. But I love when games make you do that. I think that's really cool.
So yeah, that's one of my favorite puzzles as well. It stands out a bit as well, like
Mhm.
different.
Because I started to solve the stuff in the room, and I was like, wait, there's more. Let me go back now. And I was like, oh, I didn't notice that before. And then
Yeah,
it's very cool. And then how much do
nice.
I guess how much do puzzles get redesigned as you're making the game and reevaluating them? Because maybe early on you're like, this puzzle is perfect and you move on. You have other stuff, you're like, oh, this is a lot like this, or this is too easy now because we've gotten to this level, maybe.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that. And I mean, if we would, I mean, like the first puzzles we've created, they are not in the final game. So it's been a long process. And then some puzzles like were made quite early, and then maybe there's a version of it now in the game. But we also developed like exactly how movie is going to work. In the beginning, it was more also that she was more an automatic companion, or like that she did stuff on her own more. But as game development progressed and we tested and iterated, we realized that the more mechanic we made her, in a sense that she really listens to you very well, like she does what you say, it became much more fun, like the gameplay, that you could trust her, and that she was more precise in that sense. So that was really a long kind of process of iterating, and it was quite a long time before you actually could tell movie to go places. It was a long period in development where you could only say like stay and follow and do an action. But then we realized that that really was needed to make it more dynamic and fun. So and yeah, that was a big part of the puzzle process as well. And just yeah, there's been so much testing, and we also had like this puzzle prototype, which was basically a whole version of the game with all the puzzles in the game, but very simple, with super ugly graphics, no animation or anything, where we could test the logic of the puzzles. You could still play all the puzzles, and where we could figure out what worked and what didn't work, and we could do it quickly without bothering the valuable time of our programmers. So then we in the game design team could prototype it with visual scripting and that kind of stuff. So that was really a good thing.
Well, I also like that you could tell Mui, yeah, it's not just like go there, but you have to say go there, and then you have to say like interact with this, or you have to know and do it at the right time sometimes, so you don't mess it up. It's like a lot goes into it instead of just saying go here and then the character kind of figures it out on its own.
Yeah, and it's been, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of like small decisions like that make such a big impact, I think, which I think is so interesting. For example, we could have like in some spots, Mui is following you automatically, and we have this system. So if you leave Mui and then you run up the very far away, she will ultimately come to you.
Come back.
Yeah, but I deliberately really wanted the player to having to say follow to Mui, like so that she wasn't too automatic, because it also creates like this connection that okay, I have to like take care of her as well, which I think is also a big part of why you also create a bond to her naturally, kind of like just by playing and collaborating with her.
Yeah. Oh, and then I guess that again about the puzzles, that there's not that many mechanics to learn in the game, but I feel like they can be very complex in a way that like every puzzle feels different, or sometimes you'll be like, oh, I did this earlier and now I'm combining it with something else, or even there's one where you take control of like drone robots, and if you notice earlier, they have a laser that they shoot these things in the ground. So it's like, oh, maybe I have to do that to get past it. Like you learn by seeing things or by things you've done before, which is really cool. And then you combine it all together to solve a new puzzle.
Yeah, and we try to work also with that like fun factor of like players. It could be also when we tested a puzzle and they were like, oh, it would have been cool if you could have done this. If you also could have been able to zap things. And then we were like, why not? Why not make a puzzle? So we surrounding that. So we've been having that kind of like a guiding star as well, trying to work with what would players would have wanted to do in this situation, and what have been like when you think something, oh, that would be fun if that could work, and then it works. That's very satisfying, I think, when you play games.
Yeah. Oh, oh, and Mui being afraid of water just made me think of The Last of Us because of the like having to get the plank to bring him over or bring
Oh
her
yeah,
over to places. But it's also figuring out like, oh, we need to get the water level right, do like a bunch of stuff. It was very cool. All that.
yeah, yeah. It also creates a more dynamic character. Like she's just not Mui's not only like just bringing value, but you also have to take care of her.
Hmm.
You're both important.
And then I learned very late in the game about like the secret shrines because I found one and it's like you found 9 of 10, but I'm like, oh, I guess I haven't been like I've been trying to make it through the story and kind of exploring, but I haven't been exploring like in other games where I'm trying to like open every chest or stuff like that. So now I'm like, oh man, I missed out on this whole thing about the story.
Yeah, and it's 10 of those shrines that you can find, and
Mhm.
and I'm also happy with that. It's not just a collectible or like finding a secret. It also tells you more of the backstory if you get them all and like puzzle it together.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's fun.
And then now that this is out, do you have a next project you're working on, or do you guys have an idea of doing something completely different or something kind of the same in some ways?
We've definitely started working on the next project, and uh, I'm so excited
Hmm.
to continue that this is the beginning of the studio, like that we managed to do Planet of Lana as our debut game is just amazing, and I really we've learned so much, and we just want to make better games. And I think when we will release a game from Wishfully, um, we wanted to share, the DNA that Planet of Lana has. So like you feel that it's a Wishfully game coming out, like with a lot of high creative level and cinematic narrative driven games
Hmm.
is what we will will do. But I can't tell you much more
Yeah.
than that.
Um, well, then I guess I just want to ask you a bit about yourself and your history, but I usually ask people like what their gaming history is and like maybe early memories or what they started on and how what kind of games they used to play even as a kid.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I started with Nintendo 8-bit, playing Mario and those kind of games like Mega Man.
Hmm.
I love Mega Man. The music, so good. But I played a lot. I played like SimCity. I played Another World, as I said. Played a lot of Amiga 500. I played everything I could get over. I could get my hands on, and then I hung out at friends' houses where they had other like game consoles. Um, Played a lot of like Nintendo 64, that GoldenEye classic. Like I played a lot of Quake and Counter Strike. Did a lot of like levels and mods and stuff for games when I was a teenager also.
Hmm.
And then and then continued like with doing Flash games before working with animation and film until I finally made a leap properly like with this studio. But otherwise, like gaming wise, I've it's funny because since I started making games, I play so much less games. But
Yeah.
that's also because I have two kids. I have a
Oh.
7-year-old and a 5-year-old
Hmm.
that I've had so had small kids while doing this game, which has been quite a challenge as well.
Hmm.
But I love like Paradox games. I love Last of Us, those kind of
Hmm.
games, and I love indie games.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. Like I'm super excited about playing new Zelda.
Hmm.
Haven't gotten around to do it because it's been quite
I
busy with
yeah.
release and everything.
I started it
uh,
the other day finally.
oh, nice.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Can't wait for that one. So yeah, so many good games out there.
Yeah. And you grew up in Sweden.
I grew up in Sweden. Yes, I did. Um, on the East Coast, a small city called Kalmar. and now living in on the West Coast. I mean, my brain is melting today by the heat. Now I'm living on the West Coast in Gothenburg, where we also have the studio. Yes.
And have you showed your kids, I guess, the old games that you used to play, or more newer like indie games, or not gotten them in? Like I have two nephews that one of them he's 11, so I let him play a little of Planet of Lana when I was playing through to try it out, and he loved it. But I feel like especially him, he's always into like the kid horror games now, like the first person that you're just walking through and stuff. But I try to show him different games, like
yeah, I try to introduce as much variety as possible for my kids. They play a lot of Minecraft and Roblox.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, but I've also shown them indie games, and of course Planet of Lana. The puzzles are a bit too hard for them, but they love watching and playing anyway, and I have to help them. But yeah, it's a lot of fun introducing. It's going to be fun the older they get to introduce games. I will definitely introduce older games as well.
And then when it comes to your training and school for games, you're probably more self-taught because you were more of in animation and graphic design type stuff is what you learned.
Yeah, so I've been so like my career-wise, I started like when I was 12 in like Photoshop. And then I made games, as I said, like in Flash and in Games Factory, I think it was called. Made some games. And then I've done so much different stuff like web design, animation, illustration. I worked as a press photographer for a couple of years. When I was a teenager, I started working like on the youth magazine kind of in our town. And then I started working on the big newspaper as well. So I worked as a freelance press photographer, and then went on to illustration and animation and motion graphics, and did a lot of like TV commercials, both in Sweden and internationally, as a freelancer. But yeah, self-taught. I went to school called Hyper Island, which is like a web design school, but nothing else. Otherwise, I think it's great with education, but you can also learn so much by yourself.
I always talk to people and how like things change so much, especially in gaming, that you're always learning anyways.
Yeah.
Like you're always learning new stuff, or new stuff comes out. There was one guy that was in his 50s, I think, that just made a game on his own, and it's like, well, what you learned in school back when you were in school and what you know now is totally different, probably.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, all experience you have, even though it's a totally different business or whatever, if it can be valuable for other stuff. So all experience you get is valuable, I think.
I guess what interests do you have outside of gaming, or ways you wind down or after work? Well, now also you have the kids, so a lot of family time.
I do, but I'm also actually separated. So I live like a every other week life, which I think is suits me very well actually, because you get a chance to like really focus on the kids one week, and then you can have time for yourself one week. But yeah, I love to go out to the ocean, just having a like a chilled out time. I've been picking up photography again actually last year. Cool. But just as a side,
for yourself.
For myself, not any like gigs or anything like that, but just I really like that. I play a lot of board games. I'm a big big board game geek. So I love playing board games. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. Well, I just got back into photography because I started shooting at my improv theater like shows when I wasn't in shows, and then now I'm trying to get into more live music, and so that's what I like, shooting the live entertainment type stuff.
Yeah, I like that as well. That's nice.
And then the animals and stuff is always cool, like outdoor stuff.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I like the documentary stuff, like kind of what I did for the newspaper, like documentary, like you like capturing moments with people not realizing they're being photographed,
Yeah, I don't like
being.
I don't like the posing pictures when
No,
people are
no,
ready for
exactly.
it.
But I really liked like because I did a lot of photography on like live shows like music and
Mhm.
theater like when I worked. So I really like that as well.
Yeah. And I have a friend with, I feel he just has a huge closet, or not a closet, it's like a room in his house. It's just board games. He has like thousands
Yeah.
of games probably. But now we've been trying to get together every few weeks or every 1 or 2 weeks and just play a new game to get
Yeah.
through and see which ones he needs to keep and which ones to get rid of too.
Yeah, I try to keep quite a small collection because I just want the best of them because I don't know, like the ones I really like.
Yeah.
But it's also fun playing new ones.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
No, I used to, like, we'd play with a friend, play one of their games, and then I'd love it. I'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna buy it." And it's like, why did I buy it? I could just play it when I'm with the like. And
Yeah,
then you start collecting games that you don't need because you're like, "Oh, my friend has a copy of this."
yeah, exactly.
And now I'm starting to do a Kickstarter every once in a while when I see like a cool game
Yeah,
to get something different.
yeah, that's nice.
Mm-hmm. And that's when you're working on Planet of Lana, and you'd get to go home and you did have time to play like a game. Would it be playing something similar to get inspired, or something totally different, or maybe like a no brain game that you could just get lost in and not think about it?
Yeah, I kind of feel like, I mean, sometimes I play games for um in research purpose, but
Mm-hmm.
I think mostly I like just playing what I feel like playing. I'm very excited about like City Skylines too. I
Mm-hmm.
really like that game. I played Stray, was I think
Oh
the
yeah,
last
Stray
game
was cool.
I really like that one.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm excited about Zelda
Yeah, it's really cool.
and also intrigued about Starfield as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be
Well,
interesting.
I beat Breath of the Wild finally, like the night that the new game was releasing. Like I had played it, I got stuck on
Hmm.
one of the dungeons, and then I think a month before it was coming out, I was like, okay, it's time to beat this, and I started just going through and I beat it the night before release,
Oh,
like
really?
at midnight.
Nice.
That's when I beat Ganon, and I'm like, okay, now I'm ready for the new one.
Yeah, awesome.
Mm-hmm. What are you currently playing, or lately have been playing, even if it's something old or new?
I think it's played. I think it is like Stray, as I said.
Mm-hmm.
I played Sifu
Oh yeah,
a bit. Um, but I have like a big list that I have in my phone.
yeah,
Games
the
that
games you need to play.
yes, um, and that I'm excited about, and also games that I'm excited to play with my kids as well.
Yeah.
But now it's summer here, so it's also like I'm also gonna enjoy some. In Sweden, we have like a vacation by law, like you can't
Mm-hmm.
work, you have to
Oh.
take vacation, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I'm also, it's also nice like having in the summertime I don't play as much video games, and then you can, because we have a very long and dark winter here, which
Oh
is
yeah,
very good for playing
good for
games.
gaming.
Yes.
And do you have, I guess, certain comfort games that you go back to and play all the time? Like I always go back to Binding of Isaac, like, and
Mm.
roguelites that I could keep running through.
I mean, I like Civilization. I played some, like I think that's very cozy, and like Stardew Valley, I really liked when
Oh
that
yeah.
came out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I also played that during a period where I was a little bit more, and when I kind of needed that kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, and also like City Skylines is that kind of game for me, also where I can just chill out and just have fun.
Yeah. Um, oh, and then I guess I just thought of, like, since Thunderful has so many developers they work with, do you guys have a network where you're kind of testing each other's games, or maybe
Uh,
there's some other developers that you know that you might talk to and
Yeah, I actually wish that it was more like that.
Mhm.
We've been so busy, but we have a really good community here in Gothenburg, this part of Sweden,
Mhm.
where there's like 2 cities close to each other. So we have a really good community where we collaborate a lot, but it hasn't been much of that, like testing each other's games the last year because we've just been so busy
Yeah.
getting the game out. But I hope it will be more in the
Mhm.
future.
And one more question, I guess. What's your top board games?
My top board games, I really like Viticulture. It's
Mhm.
like a game where you get to grow your wine crops. You get to make wine. You have like a French wine farm,
Mhm.
and you get to like sow the plants, and then you harvest them, and then you make wine, and you sell them. It's a really good game, I think, and it's a really good. It's like you can play it up to 4 players, I think, but I think
Mhm.
it's best 2 player. It's a really good game for people also not playing that much board games,
Yeah.
but you still want to challenge yourself. And I've played it like 50 times. Doesn't get boring to me, and it's
Mhm.
very cozy. But I also play more like another favorite is Triumph and Tragedy,
Mhm.
which I can really recommend if you're into like war games and like to move troops on a map. That kind of stuff. It's like a 3-player sandbox Second World War game. Takes like 10 hours, 10 to 12, 10 to 11 hours to play. But it's like the best war game I've ever played, board game wise, I would say. But yeah, otherwise I like Power Grid. It's a really
Mhm.
good game as well. Yeah, I like just as games, I love both quick ones, like small ones,
Yeah.
and more meaty ones that takes like a whole day.
Mhm. Yeah, I always
Well,
tell my friend that I like to do when we're a group to start with one where we're working together and then finish with one where we all are going against each other
yeah,
to change
yeah,
it up.
exactly. Yeah, and sometimes you want to go to war,
Yeah.
and sometimes you just want to like build on your little like engine, your little farm or whatever you're doing, like without anyone getting to mess up your plans.
Yeah.
And I also play that. What's that like? Space Twilight Imperium.
Oh, that's my friend's favorite. I haven't played it yet, but he plays it with
Mm,
another friend all the time that he says
yeah,
that's like his favorite game and he has a bunch of copies of it.
yeah. It's nice, but it's also like almost like a 2-day project.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this, and
Yeah,
I
thank
look
you.
forward to what's next from you guys and to finishing the game. I think I'm
Yeah,
almost done with it.
awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah, very happy to talk to you, and happy to be back in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely when the next game comes out, we'll talk again too.
Yes,
But
let's do it.
all right. Well, thanks and
All
have a
right.
good day and a good
Yeah,
summertime.
you too.
Yeah. All
All
right.
right.
Bye.
Bye.
Tamaki. Tamaki.